Hello everyone, Krydax here, and welcome back to Season 3, where we're rolling for Tufra. So in the last episode, we did some stuff that I don't really remember because the weekend has happened. I say finish route cuckoo. So yeah, we were having an issue here. And what is up with this issue? I think what it is, well, I don't know if this actually answers it. But I think it's this gap. So I think, well, this isn't as much as I thought, but like, okay, here's my thought. If we need 5 items a second on this belt, then we actually need 5 items a second only on the belts up to this point. Right, and most of the moss, for example, is needed up to just this point. So I need 4 moss a second only on this stretch, which is only, you know, 150 units long. What I don't need is all the moss looping around. So I wonder if what's happening is because we're using most of the moss on the front half of the loop, then we actually end up with way too much moss on the belt. But the problem is, if we have too much moss on the belt, then we should end up, it should still balance out. I don't know, my brain still is not comfortable with what's going on here. It feels like it should all balance out eventually, but it's just not. Although, maybe it is. I don't know, like right now these are all happy. Maybe it is going to balance out eventually. Maybe it's just going to take a few minutes. And by few, I mean like half an hour levels of minutes. I don't know. Just doesn't quite seem right. But my brain just says this should work somehow, no matter what. Like, even if it's true that this side of the belt is using 4 a second, then that would just mean there's more moss on this side than this side, but then that means there's still enough on the belt overall? I don't know. Like, the rate that this consumes moss over here, this would be adding, like if this area is consuming 4 moss a second, then this is adding 4 moss a second, and it should all balance out. And for those who are talking about not reading the mixer, I know, was it Sugul, you left a comment, like, you're not wrong that not reading the mixer can cause some weird issues where, like, if we drop a big clump, like what's about to happen, is we're gonna drop a ton of moss into the system, right? Because it was underfed. And then as we drop that ton of moss into the system, then that ton of moss starts to go back onto the belt after the mixer, and then we end up with too much moss. And that is just a symptom of the fact that we dropped this low in the first place. That is not actually the problem. Not reading the mixer is not creating the problem. The problem is being created by the fact that we're below 950 moss and we don't have space to dump more moss onto the belt. That is the problem. Right? If we always had the space to drop the item onto the belt that we wanted, it would be averaging out better. So the issue is that it's not averaging out properly. And I don't know if that's because the mixer is so short relative to the length of the whole belt. I don't know if it's that these numbers are just too high for some reason. I think it's because the numbers are too high, but I can't fully explain why. That's still a problem. Like my head's telling me if 4.7 of the moss is getting consumed here, then that means this section only needs to have an average of 1 moss a second, right? Which means we don't need as much on the belt. But if we end up with this section having 5 a second, then it'll just wrap back around anyway. So as long as the average throughput of the whole belt is 5 a second, we do have enough moss on the whole belt for everything to run. So something is weird where, like, I don't know if it's because the recipe time is too fast, but even then it shouldn't matter that the recipe time is too fast because the average moss on the belt should be 5 a second passing by. So I'm almost wondering if it's just because the mixer is too short and that's causing it to be too clumpy. And then there's another part of me that wonders if it's just going to work out over time. And if we leave it alone, it'll all work out okay. So I'm going to leave it alone for a while. I don't know for sure that that will fix it, but I'm at least hopeful that that will fix it. And apart from that, we're just going to call it a day. And we'll see if things start to catch up or not. It sure looks like they're not catching up, given these 6 or 7 at the bottom are still not running. It does seem like something's wrong. Like, how are we still not mixed? Because there's this big flood of moss. And then it adds even more. And then there's this big flood of flora. And it's like moss and flora are taking turns. And they're not starting to balance out. Oh, look. That's what's happening. Oh my gosh. It's not mixing. Look. Look at this. When it's pure moss and pure flora, look at what it's doing. Oh my gosh. That's the problem. Holy crap. I forgot that... What is this? Animal parts. Oh, wow. It's not spoiling fast enough. Though, why do I have that set at 40k? That should be set at, like... Wait, what? Oh. Yeah, that should be set at, like, 60k. Anyway, okay, so, blah, 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 blah. Words are hard. So what's happening here is an archaic thing about Factorio, which is that splitters are item agnostic. They just, per lane, so forget that they're 2 lanes for a second. An item comes in, they send it to the right. The next item comes in, they send it to the left. They don't care what the item was. And so what it's doing is when it has 2 clumps, when it's got a solid clump of flora and a solid clump of moss, it's sending moss left, then flora right, then moss left, then flora right, then moss left, then flora right, and it's not actually mixing. That is the problem, is it's getting these solid clumps of 2 different things at the same time, and it's actually perpetuating the problem rather than solving it. That is so interesting. And I'm not actually sure how to fix it. That's really funny, too. I mean, funny is the wrong word, but, like... Rather than blending the 2, it's causing them to stay separated. That is so interesting. If it was blending the 2, I think we would have already solved this problem by now. So how do we fix it? That's the real problem. Because yeah, see, we just have this solid clump of moss. And now it's gonna keep being a solid clump of moss. Until the flora starts to show up. See, and none of the... You know, this input priority left could be the problem. If I remove that, does that change anything? I don't think it does. But you see, none of this flora is... It's like, it's not blending the 2 properly. See, here we want half the moss to be going onto there, and half the flora to be going back onto there, but that's not what it was doing. So it's actually perpetuating... See, now it's sending all the moss onto there. I mean, at least it did succeed with something there. It kind of randomly ended up putting some moss in between the flora section, and that's good. That will help break things up. So it is possible over time that this figures itself out. I'm not totally convinced that it will. What am I... Oh, shoot. It's just steam, so I'm just gonna ditch it. I'm not totally convinced it'll work. Wait, why am I shipping in steam? What's happening here? Just shipping in steam because I can. We set up a top-up valve and everything, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. And is this a low priority? This feels like this should be a low priority. It is. Perfect. Anyway, all that to say, I do think that that is the issue. It's just splitter mechanics. Which, interestingly enough, could create problems. Man, see, it's doing it again. Interesting. So how do I fix this? Can I fix it? What if I output priority right? It won't space things out as much. But if I output priority right, it'll keep the mixer. No, that won't do anything. Yeah. What if I output priority left? That'll keep the mixer full at all times. I still don't know if that fixes the issue though. If we have a solid mass of moss on the left and or on the top and a solid mass of flora on the bottom, I still think we're gonna see we're not gonna see a blended item type in the mixer. Or will we? I actually don't know. It could change priority. No, see, it's not blending the moss and the flora. It's still keeping them separate. Shoot. That's really interesting. I would have never thunk that we'd have this exact issue. But it makes so much sense. Wow, I'm so intrigued by this. So, and that's keeping things from spacing out properly, which is then, I think, the reason that we're getting these clumps. Even then, there's a piece of me that says this should still be working. What was our count? What was it again? About 12. Yeah, it's really close. Especially when I added the 20%. I might just need to shrink these a little bit. I'm going to shrink these all by about 10%. And we're going to see if that fixes it over time. So the mixer doesn't work with solid clumps. But as long as there's enough empty space, it should work. The problem is when things are all in a line like that. And it has a thing in a line and a different thing in a line. Alright, anyway, I digress. Route cocoons are done, as far as I can tell. No, sorry, they're not. We need to pull route cocoons off the belt too. And feed them to you as a multi-provider. And route cocoons need flora too. Shoot. Or route cocoon. 3200. Are those stack size 100 as well? They are. Okay. And then here we'll filter Vrouk to the right. Feed in the old cocoon. Let's see. This only works if Vrouk's less than 3300. This only works Vrouk cocoon. 33 plus 33 is 66. So we should be fine on stack size. And then let's see right here, you're going onto the right side. So you will go onto the up side and you grab the Vrauki cocoon. Okay, that should do it. Man, what a weird situation this has been. Let's see if it settles down to a more stable spot. Because theoretically, there's something... Let's imagine this was all evenly distributed, the usage along the belt. But we're inputting... So let's say we're consuming 5 a second. That means this has to be inputting 5 a second, right? That's just how it works. This spot, it's like a river, right? The water is flowing into the river from, let's say, a garden hose, a very big garden hose, at 5 a second, right here. It has to be. If 5 a second is coming off the belt, 5 a second has to be going onto the belt if it's in steady state. Therefore, 5 a second's going onto the belt right here. And then as it goes, the belt density will decrease. It has to, right? Because these are consuming... Once we get to here, we should only see 2.5 moss a second passing by this spot. So rather than assuming the belt density across the whole belt should be a constant, I should be assuming the belt density is a gradient going down to 0 at the end. The last item would come off the belt here. And if we have extra items, that just helps, you know, keep things rolling at a consistent pace. So at the end, well, right here there'd be 2.5 items a second, and then maybe over here there's only 2 items a second. So I need to cut my number in half, because a triangle, you know, like if we imagine the belt over this and the amount on each belt, it's going to be decreasing over time. I'm not doing a good job drawing a triangle, but it's something like this. I'm gonna have to delete all these. And that is half the area of this. Triangles are half of a rectangle. And so that means I have about twice as much as I need. Wow. So I'm actually gonna drop down to 800, 350, and 330. Now, it does matter, like, if the consumption at the end, you know, of these buildings is more than these buildings, then half of the amount wouldn't be enough. It's really only a gradient, because, like, these ones use all the cocoons, for example, and 1 sap. They use about the same amount of sap, so I'm okay on that. They use about the same amount of food. This one uses less water, but you can see the moss is really front-loaded. So we really didn't need an average of 5 a second moss, because we shouldn't see 5 a second coming out of this end of it. Because if we're consuming 4 a second here, and we also want 5 a second on the back stretch, that's 10 a second. That would need to get loaded on. I don't know, but you need a little bit of extra on the backstretch to guarantee that things are spaced out. But I don't know. We'll try with these new numbers and see if it ends up working out. I mean, look, it's already working. The buildings are running all the way up to here now. It's just the last 2 that aren't. Also, with this pulling cocoons off, I might never see these last 2 run until cocoons are backed up. Because we're just eating some of the cocoons. Although these get first dibs on cocoons, so these should probably all run. Anyway, I don't know. I think I might have fixed it by now. We'll see. Well, hold on. Now I'm confused again. Because if we have 800 items on the belt, is that enough to get 500 loaded in? If there's 800 items between here and here, that definitely should be more than 5 a second. So why is this one not running yet? I don't know, something still feels wrong with all this. I'm just gonna ignore it for a while. We're gonna move on to the next thing. So, let's see, tar usage project. I'm not worrying about that. That's old news. We'll do something else with that eventually. All right, well, I'm having a great day. Pi is a great time, and we're gonna do some new stuff. Well, research towards some new stuff, I should say. So again, kind of the background goal here is red circuits. We're not really looking at red circuits yet, but we are moving towards red circuits ever so slowly. I'm gonna queue up a few researches here that look semi-familiar, and maybe we'll queue up some new animals and plants. And I'll work towards that. And then eventually we'll get rayon, which can get us better batteries. So that's kind of a background goal. What are some other things that I need to get done? Like, is there anything I'm running short on? Why don't we look at LTN inventory? I haven't done that in a while. Oh, I'm hoping that we get an update. Well, I guess I'm using Dan Bopes' fork, which means they would have to update the version because someone made a change that makes it so these would turn yellow when they're in transit, so we can actually compare the two lists. And we want network ID 1. Okay, so seaweed, I need to check. Seaweed should be fine. Seaweed not fine? Hold the phone. Seaweed's definitely fine. So wait, what? Something weird's going on. Wait, why didn't it say 2.7K in transit a second ago? Oh, in transit only shows up once the train is loaded? It doesn't show up once the request is made? Oh, that's annoying. I thought it showed up as soon as the request was made. I might need a second seaweed station. But there's not a second train coming right now. Why is there such a huge amount being requested? I'm a little lost. Maybe the rates just aren't keeping up? It's possible the rates aren't keeping up. I mean, this will help a little bit. Unload things faster. So that trains are spending less time sitting here. Okay, I mean, we're just gonna make some incremental improvements here. We gotta do some cleanup work, I think, on our base. So, okay, going back, there's a lot of wood requests here. I'm a bit concerned about wood. I haven't looked at wood in a long time, so... It looks like the supply is okay. There's only one train with this stop. So that seems okay. Now seems like a fine time to make it load even faster. Just to guarantee that's doing the best it can. And then I guess we just look at where these places are going. And make sure they're unloading as quickly as possible. Replace that power pole. Do that. Okay. Tell me why I'm seeing a channel 2 station when I typed in network ID 1. Can anyone explain that to me? Oh, no, sorry, that's saying 2 stations, not channel 2. Okay. So we're out of pure sand, got it. We're out of Ralasia seeds, potentially, looks like. We're out of naphtha? That seems odd. We're out of sap? Now, sap is an easy fix because guess what, baby? We can triple our sap speed with basically no work. I was just about to do this anyway. I was actually thinking about it in this episode. Oh, also these don't even have modules. LOL. Okay, well, this is gonna be an easy change. Our sap production is about to go from 0 to hero very quickly. I'm so interested to see how fast it goes after this. This is gonna be awesome. It's gonna take like 4 or 5 minutes for it to happen though. So that should help with that problem. Okay, phosphate rock. Why are we not keeping up with that? That one I'm probably not worried about, actually. Because we're just not mining phosphate rock fast enough. Lantimony? Ugh. That got requested. Copper? How's copper doing? Copper might be fine. Let me maximize loading here. And is this a slightly higher priority station? I think I'm gonna put this station at priority 1, just because this feels a bit more self-contained. I want this to be the first priority copper. Yeah, this seems to be working fine. Although, I feel like this should be done the other way. Or even just mix it. So... because where else are we requesting copper? Copper plate. We're just cleaning up the trash here. So... you're requesting copper but not getting it. So we should probably take a look at this station. This one. Oh, and I've already got... yeah. I think the rate... you know, I'm starting to get in trouble, folks. I'm getting in trouble for my hubris of having only 2 trains. Okay, here's a place where I need more loaders. Trains with this stop 5? What? that shouldn't be possible. It has a train limit of 2. What? Oh, it's just because it's called R. Oh, that's so confusing. I need to name these properly. Cotton guts ingredient. I see the problem. Okay, that was a little confusing, but I get it now. All right, how's sap flowing now? The sap, the sap saviors are coming. They're coming. They'll be getting here any minute now. Okay, maybe a couple more minutes now. But soon they will be here to bring our sap production into a new golden age. So this is when we stopped doing Vraux, I believe, right here. And then apparently we consumed over time our whole buffer, and about 2.5 hours ago we just started eating all of the sap that we were making, and we haven't stopped since. So that is about to skyrocket. It's gonna more than triple because these buildings weren't running, and that's 20 out of... That's a full third wasn't running, so we were getting 2/3 going up to about... We're getting about 6... Is that right? No, about 4 times the sap that we're gonna get. And the speed isn't fully tripling, that's another piece of this. Maybe like 2.3 or something. Anyway. They will start arriving soon. Okay, what else? How else can we clean up the base here? So... Let's see, copper, chromite sand, in transit, lead plate. See in transit yet. Oh, there we go. Water. Could be fine. Syngas. I mean, I can just look over here. Syngas. Fine. How's water look? Hard to find icons. I really wish we could search icons rather than doing it here. Water's available. Okay. Glass seems like it could be a problem. Surely graphite and coke are not a problem. Let me check on glass. Sodium hydroxide a problem? Yeah, actually, sodium hydroxide's a problem too. Alright, the sap is arriving. I guess they're only slightly doubling in speed, because we're going from basically... A weird way to look at it is the building is one module already, and it's locked in at being Mark 1. We would need Mark 3 buildings, plus Mark 3 modules to get the full crafting speed. Though that would then have a crafting speed of more, I don't know. More than double. So, or, well, triple in this case. Anyway, the sap production is gonna skyrocket here. It should, I guess, triple, roughly, then. Should be the final number. Okay, so anyway, I was gonna look at sodium hydroxide and glass. There's probably nothing I can do with glass. I don't think. I mean, I guess... Now that glassware's finally caught up, should we be making more than 7.5 a second glass? Can we make more than 7.5 a second? We actually can. Unfortunately. I say unfortunately because that means we need to implement some sort of stacking here. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think actually what it means we need to do is something like this. I'm gonna add 3 more buildings. Uh-oh. Thankfully that does work. Okay, yeah, we're gonna add 3 more buildings. And then I'm going to actually unload the glass onto this side. And I'm kind of lucky that that just happens to be an empty spot and that works out. And I don't want these trees here or here. And then this will load glass into that, and we'll merge that in. That'll increase our glass output by 60%, actually more than 60%. I think that'll be a full 15 a second, actually. Yeah, I don't need this last building. I'm gonna leave it though, because I can. All right, so sap production should be maxed out now. Yeah, I mean, we went from 130 to 450. Yeah, that's more than tripled our sap production. So hopefully that's enough sap to keep us going. And then sodium hydroxide. Not getting enough saline water. Part of me is thinking now could be a time to use up all that gravel we're getting. We're currently using the stone mostly, I think, to get pure sand. We're always using the stone to get pure sand, it seems, because of all the glass we need. So I don't even know if these are running very often anymore. Huh. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, should I just tap another salt mine? And I think the answer is yes. Where is my salt mine? I've lost the location. Here we go. So let's see, salt mine. What's it called? Salt rock? Salt. Is it just called salt? Just be called salt. Okay, there's one right here. So let's get this going. Let's see. We're gonna need a station. I'll probably do it here. Uh-oh. What? What the heck? Oh, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I didn't realize those pipelines were even connected, but yeah, the hot air for glass is coming from over there, so there we go. Now, are we requesting hot air here? Where's that hot air coming from? But actually, where is that hot air coming from? I don't remember, so I don't want to screw it up. This hot air comes from... It does come from down here. Are we requesting it over here? We are, okay. Got it. All right, so that's what's happening there. Anyway, with salt, so we're gonna need a fluid requester, which is what's already on the mouse. Perfect. Fluid requester. No. Cancel. We're gonna need FR fungible. And our good friend FR fungible is pressurized air. Actual received. Nope. Still wrong. We need our good friend fluid fueling requester extension. Because that just does its thing. Okay, and then that will go across, up, across, up, and in. And then we're going to load directly onto a belt because of stacking. We should be able to fit up to 22 items a second onto one thingy. And then we're going to bring that to some washers. And we're going to fill a train stop with saline water. Saline water. And then we need washer. I mean, the sooner we wash it, the better. So I'm just gonna go right here. Okay. And then... we need 5 a second per building, so I'm going to do something like this. Boom, boom. Loader, loader, loader. All right, that should do that. Power, power, power. Oh, shoot. Right. Fluid connections. Okay, there we go. And then saline, saline, saline. Turn a corner, go this way. Okay, and then we need to work our way down to here. Doesn't really seem to have any empty spots, so we're gonna have to go up and around like that. Okay, I think that does it. And this is phytoplankton plus saline water. I don't think we need to do anything else except put salt mine into the auto mall. I haven't had to touch the auto mall in a while. All right, salt mine. One of those, done. Done deal. Cool. All right, we're getting stuff done. Still no science. That's going to take a little while because we require the Vrout cocoons, which is going to take probably a while to get going. How's this handling things? Pretty badly. This still isn't working. Okay. Now we just don't have enough sap. Something just feels off here. Like I'm missing some important part of how this system works. I mean, is it just the... Because items only ever come in here. If we want 5 items a second, then that should just be enough. To where we don't even need items on the back end. So if the belt has 350 as a whole, then that should be enough. But then the problem is, what if some of those items are back here? Then the belt thinks it has enough, but it doesn't. So we need enough on the entire belt for it to be an average throughput of the number. So actually, no, I think my initial, I know I said that it's a gradient down, but if you rely on the gradient down, then if things don't get timed perfectly, you can end up with the bulk of your gradient in the wrong spot, and then you don't have enough. So to guarantee you have enough, you do want a rectangle rather than a gradient down. But the problem is, when it's a rectangle, buildings are taking from the front more, and that's why you need the average to be a rectangle. So that means the front ends up being higher, and it goes like this. So the average area might be the rectangle, but the problem is the front area is too much. So I actually think this sushi belt model that I've been using the whole time only works if your final rate of items per second is like less than, or around or less than half a belt. And that's assuming your consumption along the belt is roughly equivalent. Which it's not in this case. All of the moss consumption is on this side, which I think throws things off a little bit too. But I still think it wouldn't throw things off if our total consumption was less than like 4. But I think the problem is when your consumption gets as high as it is, we start to run into issues. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna put the flora on the other side of the belt and still stacked, and I think that will fix the problem. Oh, I'm already like right here. I can just walk. I forgot where I was. Remote view gameplay has you forgetting that you have a body. Okay, so what we're gonna do is check the numbers real quick to make sure that we're not messing up the other side, but I don't think we are. So we've got 2.4 cocoons plus 1.3 barrels plus 1.3 barrels plus 0.46 food. Oh gosh. I've got 5.46 food. Not food. On that side of the belt already. What else can we stack? I can stack the water barrels. I can't stack the output barrels, and I can't stack the output cocoons. I mean, there's nothing. I can stack the food. Saves me a tiny amount. Although stacking food could actually be a problem in terms of spacing, potentially. But I could. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to stack the water barrels. So it seems like I don't have enough barrels. That's interesting. I get a few more in the system. Anyway, stacked barrels should help a little bit. So that takes me from, so that saves me about 0.6 items a second, because remember the average stack is going to be about 2. And if I stacked food, it would save me barely anything. But yeah, I think putting flora on the close side is my only solution here. So we're gonna switch this over. Man, what a crazy like... Oh, thank God. Decayed first. That definitely needs to be a thing. Anyway, what a crazy situation. I do think I've answered my confusion, though. Because there's kind of three models here, right? We've got rectangle. Let me do like 7 by, 15 here. So in model 1, well, okay. We were thinking like, well, buildings consume in a linear fashion. So the actual items on the belt that we need, if we were just doing a normal system, would look something like that. Because buildings would be consuming as we go. But the problem is, if we only have that many items on the belt, that many instead of the full rectangle amount, then the problem with that is then if items end up over here, they're contributing to what's on the full belt, which means then we don't have enough items in this section because items are coming around on the sushi loop. And we could stop the measuring of the belt right here. We could put a splitter to like only measure this section of belt. That's one option if you had a sushi loop with only the front half consuming, but that's like a lot of stress. The whole point of the sushi loop is to not have to do that. It's to just have enough items circulating. So again, the only way to do that is to have an average throughput on the whole belt that supports the throughput you need. But then what the actual practical application of that is if your average throughput is this amount of area, but your buildings are consuming in a linear fashion, you're actually going to end up with something that looks like this. I'm not doing the perfect job of drawing these, but your actual what's on the belt is going to look like this. And so we're front loading more items a second on this section of the belt. And that's why we've been running into issues. So for everyone who's left comments and ideas over the mini episodes we've done sushi stuff, I appreciate it. And I don't think we've ever kind of gotten to that level of understanding though. I do think that is the real reason of what's happening. And I think this will solve it. I do need to go back to the old numbers though. It was 950 and 440. And this one was 400, I think. Or was it also 440? It's probably about 420. Given that those numbers are very close. So I'm hoping that this fixes it. As the flora gets consumed from both sides equally, it should even out after a little bit here. So we'll see. If all of the route facilities are running, another like half hour from now, we'll know we fixed it. I am a little bit worried about the spacing on this belt. It's possible I need to stack the Vrauk food too. That would only save me 0.23 a second on that belt side, so it wouldn't change much. It is an option though. Oh, and I didn't add the Vrauks in either. Oh gosh. I'm actually starting to get worried. Another option we have to help that belt side, if we get really desperate to not change the whole system, would be to take empty barrels off of this section of the belt. That would save me actually a good amount. Most of my water barrels come from here. So if I took empty barrels off and just separately belted them down, that would potentially help as well. Okay, well, I'm hopeful this is actually going to solve our problems. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm hopeful. We shall see. Looks like right now we're short on what? Nothing. They're all running. Right now, is it the output belt is jammed up? No, not... we're out of flora, it seems. But that's just because it's not mixed yet properly. Let me just double check our numbers. What did we have? It was like 260, right? 18 plus 124 is 142. So 284. I mean, the calculations are probably right here. Yeah, the 284, 2.4 divided by 1.875 times 284 times the 1.2, 20% overhead. Yeah, 436 was the number. So this one was 440. I think the sap was 450. All right, we'll see if it fixes itself. Every green dot we see in these 5 buildings is going to be good news once we see it. Yeah, food isn't evenly distributed yet across the belt either. Huh. Yeah, I mean, I am curious if we're now overloading this side of the belt and we're gonna run into some of the same problems. I hope we won't. There's also this guy taking Vraux off. I don't know, man. This is tricky. Because food's going on and Vraux are trading place with it. Slightly denser on the Vraux, actually. Cocoons are way more. Okay, I don't know. We're just gonna have to let it run for a while. Now we're up to 7 buildings not running. That's worse, not better. But the numbers are correct. It's just the belt's not balanced right now. So it might take like, you know, half an hour. Because one rotation of this belt takes like, how many minutes? What's belt speed again? 2 squares a second, roughly. So if we're 280 squares, it's like a full 3 minutes to do 1 lap. So it's gonna take like 12 minutes for 4 laps of stuff to even start to balance out. So yeah, we'll give it some time. See where things land. Anyway, I probably should call it an episode soon. I feel like we haven't gotten much done, but again, that is kind of how pyanodon's feel sometimes. Let's check on our salt mine. Great effort, Krydax, great effort. You know, I do have some notes though. When you are planning to wash salt in a bunch of water and dissolve it into saline water, it might be good to actually have water. Have you considered that? I mean, it's just a thought. You know, I don't want you to feel bad about yourself here, but, you know, I just want you to know that it would be good to double check that you're actually giving things water that need water. How's moss, by the way? Moss is great. Anyway, the other thing I realized we are not doing is requesting saline water. Or are we? We have a problem. This is going to request saline water from itself. Isn't it? Right? Am I crazy? I guess it never should because it's going to be empty. Right. Because it'll use the saline water from this. Still feels like something's wrong here. You know what we're gonna do? Surely we have a requester somewhere. Provider, provider, provider. This is a requester. Okay, yeah, I can request here. Why are these filtered for steam and... I have no idea why these are filtered for those. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna request saline water, but only if this guy is running dry. So that'll kind of guarantee we're okay here. So we're gonna do big pole. Connected to big pole. Connected to big pole. Connected to big pole. Connected to big pole. And then we're going to green wire across all the... I probably should have just used a radar here, not gonna lie. Okay, so we're measuring our saline to make hydroxide. And then we need a simple decider combinator that says saline water running. Nope, not the actual saline water. Saline water running low, which means less than, I don't know, 10,000? Oop, 10,000. Then we output negative 50 grand. We'll say 40 grand. 26 grand. Saline water. And that gets added into this. And then this one. I don't think we need the filter. Anyway, that one gets plugged in, and then we go... Easiest line of access here. Probably here. Down. Okay. So then here we go down. Well, I think we are going to call it an episode now that we've got all that hooked up. And that goes over here. Okay. So that will just directly flow in to this. Basically, this is the requester. Another way I could have done this, now that I'm looking at what I've hooked up, is just attached that tank to here and then just requested it the normal way. I kind of like this better. Okay, well, I'm gonna call this an episode, and hopefully the Vrauks are figuring themselves out. Ooh, we're up to only 3 not running now. That's a good sign. We'll see if that continues. Anyway, as always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.